Hi, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and today I want to do a video, and we're going to call this one Nazi Germany and their UFOs and more. Okay? So it's always been quite interesting to talk about the possible existence of past and present day UFO German bases. Okay? And in the countries like Brazil have been mentioned as a possible site, and there's been talk, of course, about Antarctica. I do believe the Germans made contact with a non-human group in the 1930s when the Vril Society, that's a German society in the 1930s, was quite interested in the occult world. And a couple of these guys, I believe, stumbled into some type of alien encounter. Okay. There, of course, is another option that the German geniuses of the time actually developed the technology with no help from beyond. But it's more fun to stay with the alien possibility because it's possible the Germans were able to develop something like that. Von Braun and his group of scientists, of course, were some really uh, smart guys. There's no doubt about it, but I don't know. I just don't know. I think there was alien help involved here. So the Germans, since the early 1900s, were thinking that beings from other worlds did exist. So they did have a belief in them. This came after two German societies, the Vril and the uh, the Thule Society, um, actually had this belief system. The Vril, since the 1980s, talked about this coming master race, which they twisted into the new German society of the 1930s, which helped embolden their desire to conquer the world. Now, we all have to remember that there are aliens, and I will tell you, there absolutely are alien beings. Okay, had my own encounters. Some of my family members have. Hundreds and hundreds of people that I've interviewed have. I work for aerospace companies. All these things are confirmations, and I'm just telling you that. You don't have to believe it, but I'm telling you there's aliens. Okay, even though CNN has not confirmed this. Now, the other thing is, let's remember there are one group of aliens is these blonde Nordics. Okay, so there is this weird kind of master race, blonde, etc., that is was floating for many years out there. Okay, but there are blonde aliens, the Nordics. Okay, so keep that in mind. Later, the truly group supposedly built this interdimensional time machine in 1934. And I believe they may have helped us build a similar machine in Montauk Point in the late 1940s. Okay. And the reason I believe this, and I think there's some pretty reasonable evidence to that, there were several sightings of German U boats docked at the Army base there at Montauk Point about the same time. Even though the countries were at war, deep levels of cooperation between them always seemed to be focused on something that was going to happen in the future after the war. Now, I want to compare this to what the Russians and the United States do right now with the space, with their space cooperation. You know, the shuttles and the different things, the space stations. We've been, even though we've been pretty much at each other's throat, and it's only gotten worse with the Ukraine war. We're still cooperating on a level at in the space station project or program. Okay, so this is sort of the same thing I think was happening um, between Germany and the United States in the 40s, actually right during the war. Okay, so let's go back to the UFOs. The Germans' largest UFO is about 75 feet across, and it was a saucer shape, and it actually had a name. I didn't know that until recent research, and it was called a Havni Boo One. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's probably supposed to be some kind of a German pronunciation, but anyways, Habni Boo One was built at the beginning of the Second World War but it never achieved stability. Okay, they were never able to basically fly it, um, and it kind of wobbled. I think a lot as to what I heard, uh, and it was basically useless during the war, which is probably good. It was, uh, but the remnants of the Third Reich smuggled the technology to Brazil. This is the theory, and maybe even Antarctica, where it was further developed into some of the sightings we have here possibly today and other sightings around the world. Okay, so there's a possibility some people believe it. I believe that that the Germans did develop this technology. They at the time of the war, of course, they didn't develop it enough to actually use it. So, anyways, let's see what else we got. So let's talk about Antarctic for a minute. This connection, possible connection. So Antarctica, as you all know, Antarctica, as you all know, is a really a very harsh air place, very unexplored landscapes. Has long been a popular location for these conspiracy theories about the Germans' UFO bases, or at the very least, the German base underground. Okay. So the idea that the Nazi base in Antarctica had gained traction here in the United States in the 1970s and 1980s. Some theorists claimed that the Nazis had discovered a secret entrance to the Earth's interior and established a hidden base there. Others suggest that the Nazis had found a lost city of advanced technology, an advanced civilization, uh, that they got some of this information or worked with this lost civilization to build further UFO type craft. Of course, one of the I guess pieces of evidence people would talk about a lot is this Richard Byrd, um, who was explorer, United States explorer, polar explorer. He made this map, and on the map it showed this entrance and all this stuff. But if you really look at the map, I don't really know how the expert. And I've seen the map, how these people believe this, because it really, to me, it looks like a stylization representation of the continent that's under the ice. That's what it looks like to me. And yes, it may look like there's an opening in one spot, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think he really came out and ever said anything about it. Everybody just interpreted his maps. So, anyways, with that said, let's move on to the Brazilian connection, which I think is a little more solid. The idea that Nazi bases in Brazil is less well known than the Antarctic theories, but it has its following, and I'm one of them that like to follow it. Some theorists claim that the German scientists and engineers fled to Brazil after the war and established secret facilities there. Now, I think there's a lot of evidence that German scientists and other people from Germany, Nazis especially, did evacuate Germany in Europe and came down to South America. Okay, and they went to different countries there, uh, Argentina, Brazil, etc. But anyways, Brazil is really interesting because it's really argued that the facilities were used to continue the advancement of technologies, including flying saucers. So one of the most prominent locations associated with these Brazil theories is San Paulo. Some of the people believe that there is a secret underground base right underneath the city where the German scientists and engineers are working on these advanced projects. However, reality is there is really no evidence. Now, there is evidence that plenty of Germans and Nazis had gone to Brazil. Okay, there's no doubt about that. But exactly if they went underground and they had this facility that did it, we're not sure. But we'll talk about this in a minute. So, so what happened on this saucer technology? So I believe that an alien group basically, before this got too far along, they reneged on a deal. They made a deal, I'm sure. They probably made a deal with the Germans, and I think they made a deal with the Americans down the road. Now this is later on, But I think what happened is they reneged on the deal because they maybe have figured out that this technology would be used for something evil and maybe even the destruction of humanity. Because one of the things I think the Germans found out is that because of the electromagnetic field around the ship, it makes it almost impossible to use weapons from the UFO platform. Okay, now when I say weapons, I mean weapons that we had. Okay, yes, yes, technology would get bigger and better with the UFOs. Who knows? Maybe they'd find a way to use weapons off of the UFO platform. But apparently, the electromagnetic field around the ship itself makes it almost impossible to use these type of weapons. So the my guess is the Germans probably found out the hard way that that was a reality. Okay, and that probably caused some of their pilots, etc., and the UFOs to blow up or explode or not work, etc. Excuse me. So the other thing I want to mention about Brazil. Brazil has probably had some of the highest rates of UFO sightings in the world since the 1950s. Okay, I have friends that are from Brazil, and they say UFO sightings, especially around Sao Paulo, are rampant. Always have been. It's not even hardly even talked about. Uh, it would just be like another day. There's an airplane flying over. There's a UFO flying over. So and this particular couple of people I talked to, they said that their parents had always talked about it in the 50s and in the 60s. They would always see these ships, and a lot of them, some of them actually looked very similar to the pictures of the uh, German UFOs uh, flying by. So suspicion is, I believe there was a UFO, a Nazi UFO base in Brazil, or maybe there still is. I don't know. That I don't know. Anyways, again, many people in rural Brazil say that it's nothing unusual to see UFOs, nothing at all. And I'd heard that for years and years and years from eyewitnesses of reliable sources I personally had. So, anyways, there's one thing I've written about the Nazis and the UFOs for many years, but there was one thing I always did say. I always said at the end of that last article, which I wrote probably 10 years ago, I said, sleep tight. It's only the Germans doing a flyby. So, anyways, with that said, hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll probably do another one in a couple months or so on it. I have some more information. We'll see you. Bye bye.